Soaked in Bleach is a documentary-style film that uses footage, interviews, and dramatizations to portray the death of Kurt Cobain from the perspective of Tom Grant. Tom Grant was hired as a private investigator by Cobain's wife, Courtney Love. Love hired Grant a few days before Cobain was found dead, but was already reported as missing. Shortly after speaking and meeting with Love, Tom became suspicious of her inconsistent stories and behavior. After catching her in several lies, Grant began to record all their phone calls as well as any other phone calls and evidence related to the case. This film uses those recordings as well as interviews, testimonies, and dramatizations to reveal information that was not released to the public or recorded on official police records at the time of his death. The police report stated that Kurt Cobain committed suicide in his Seattle home while under the influence of 3 times the lethal dose of heroin. Tom's recordings and testimonies, combined with interviews of Kurt's close friends and other people involved with the case, which took place over 20 years ago, suggest that Kurt was in fact not suicidal. The content in this film suggests Kurt Cobain's death was a homicide conspired to appear as a suicide. There are 4 rhetorical elements used in persuasive communication. These elements are ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. Ethos refers to an appeal in ethics. This element uses ethics as a means of convincing someone of the credibility of the persuader. Pathos refers to an appeal to emotion, using pathos as a way of convincing an audience using an emotional response. Logos refers to an appeal to logic, and kairos refers to timing and placement. This documentary has a heavy appeal to ethos, as credibility is vital in any documentary. The audience must be able to believe the points being made for a documentary to be successful. Tom Grant leaves no doubts to his credibility as he uses actual phone recordings from the case from the 90s with Courtney Love as well as friends and family of Kurt Cobain. These phone recordings provide evidentiary support for the points Tom makes throughout the film, and they provide credibility for Tom while also highlighting the discredibility of Courtney through her inebriated calls and inconsistent stories. Other examples of ethos are police evidence, which is used to support arguments of foul play in Kurt's death, as well as to shed light on Seattle Police Department's wrongful handling of the case. Also, many former policemen and forensic specialists appear in the film to add their own interpretation of the evidence, as well as to provide testimony to the fact that while the case is still closed, many who worked on it believe it should be reopened. Photos and excerpts from Kurt's personal journal and suicide note provide a much more intimate feel to the story. They also connect the audience on a more personal level and help relate them to Kurt's internal troubles. Later in the film, Tom Grant confesses his feelings of guilt and remorse for the 98 and counting copycat suicides that followed Kurt's death. Tom feels that if he could prove it was not a suicide, he could prevent further suffering. Logos plays a major role in any successful documentary, and it is especially important when the object is to solve a crime. Whether a fictional police drama or a real-life court case, logos must be utilized to persuade an audience. It is used in this film to persuade the audience the same way a lawyer would use evidence to convince a jury. If the logic doesn't add up, you will have a hard time convincing anyone of anything. This is seen when police evidence from the case is called upon, as well as recorded phone calls are used to trigger the audience's logic as to whether the pieces fit in the puzzle. This is seen when police evidence from the case is called upon, as well as recorded phone calls used to trigger the audience's logic as to whether the pieces fit in the puzzle. On the other hand, if things don't add up, logos or lack thereof can be used to disprove a point. For instance, when Courtney lies about excerpts from Kurt's suicide note and her early disposal of his first note from Rome, as well as her various other discrepancies and lies throughout the case. The element of kairos refers to the opportune timing or placement and is used in the documentary to build suspense as well as to set things up in the right manner. For instance, the documentary itself, being released 20 years after Kurt's death, capitalized on this timing. Seattle PD had been getting more and more requests to reopen the case as amateurs and professional forensic specialists alike expressed a growing interest and dissatisfaction in the original outcome. Also, just 3 months after filming the documentary, a new set of crime scene photos that are 20 years old was released to the public, inspiring many to revisit the case. Their use of Kurt's house where the suicide took place as the locale for much of the documentary adds to the appeal of Kairos. Now that his fans are older, wiser, and more influential, they have a louder voice and a more sensible approach to the matter as well. This, along with 20 years of accumulated theories and new information being brought to light, make the timing of this documentary extremely opportune. The visual elements used along with the rhetorical elements are extremely well done and complement each other to make the documentary as memorable and entertaining as possible, while still delivering a plethora of information so that the audience is well informed and influenced in a certain way without feeling like they've been forced into an opinion or herded. The color scheme used throughout utilizes cool blue colors and a grainy sort of unrefined effect to produce a raw, gloomy feel. It gives the dramatic reenactments used an authentic look. Also, the use of themed text for different parties in the film adds character to what is being displayed. The simple difference between Nirvana being written in a grungy, handwritten style and the police evidence shown with an inhuman, boring font make clear the opposing attitudes of the parties. In addition, they've utilized high-quality computer-generated diagrams to deliver accurate research and scientific evidence so that the audience better comprehends and retains the information without it boring them. This film conveys objective information, which are measurable facts and figures, such as those you would find in a textbook, encyclopedia, or news report, in a subjective way. Therefore, the personal opinions, assumptions, and beliefs of the people in the film are delivered alongside the objective information they are using to make it a blend of both types. For example, the fact that Kurt Cobain had 3 times the lethal dose of heroin in his system is objective, but the doctor who delivered this information also gives his subjective opinion that Kurt's tolerance would be high enough to handle such a dose. This blend of subjective and objective information is seen throughout the film, giving the audience the chance to have all the unbiased information and make his own opinion while still being influenced in the way the director wants it to be used. Soaked in Bleach is a well put together, thought-provoking documentary that successfully utilizes the rhetorical elements as well as various visual elements to captivate and convince its audience in a particular way. Although it is biased at times, due to various witnesses and advisors expressing their own theories and opinions, as well as professional assessments and calculations, the theories never seem forced or far-fetched, and the information is well suited to their target demographic. As a critic, I believe this documentary entertains and captivates the audience well, while at the very least making them reflect Kurt Cobain's death, if not change their opinion on the matter entirely.